Hello everyone to yet another chapter of exploring avenues for improving our world. And I'm thrilled to welcome you all to this rendezvous with Bibhu Mohapatra, hosted by FIDR USA. The credo or motto of FIDR USA is to reimagine development and to create a platform for positive social transformation. And it's my privilege to welcome our guest, a global trendsetter, Bibhu Mohapatra, to this event. With a power-packed line base ranging from Michelle Obama to Gwyneth Paltrow and his designs being featured in globally famed boutiques, his love for fashion was sparked at a very young age by his mother, who also taught him how to sew. So another reason today's event is quite memorable because it's a tribute to Wendell Rodrigues, who is a dear friend of the FIDR family and an enduring name in the global fashion industry. So I request you all to observe a minute's silence in memory of our departed friend, Wendell Rodrigues. Thank you. Thank you. So FIDR is committed to forging sustainable and meaningful connections with the world. And we are also working on the ground, gaining insights from the society, but also working with time to shatter the glass ceilings that women face in their daily lives. So which is why we are quite privileged to have with us a designer who is always in sync with the pulse of the socio-economic context. So Bibhu Mohapatra's latest Spring 2021 collection was inspired from the life of Amrita Shergill, a pioneer of modern Indian art. And he says the post-pandemic norm for fashion should be mindful consumption, less production, and less fast fashion. So in 2008, he opened his first fashion house, A Thinking Box in New York. It was more than just a design studio. A Thinking Box also reflected the principles and vision that will be infused in his exquisite collection. In 2009, Bibhu Mohapatra launched his eponymous label, and since then he has been a relentless innovator in the industry. He has also designed several collections of hand-woven silk saris to help the traditional weavers in his home state of Odisha. In May 2010, he received the Young Innovators Award from the National Arts Club, and in June 2010, he became a member of the Council of Fashion Designers of America. And most recently, in 2016, he also launched a fine jewelry collection, Artemis, in collaboration with De Beers. So I extend a warm welcome to you, sir, to this event. Uh, Sir has successfully connected his roots to a global framework, and FIDR USA is also committed to working in this framework. So I'm Meenakshi, the knowledge lead of FIDR, and I have with me today Charudatta sir and Mamta ma'am. Charu sir is an author and a known thinker of our times, and Mamta ma'am is an IT professional and also the founder of FIDR USA. So I welcome all of you to this event. Um, and also, before we begin, I have a small, kind request to our participants today. If you have any questions, please post it on the chat box and keep your audio muted. We're happy to take questions, but please post it on the chat box. So I now request Mamta ma'am to take this discussion forward.
Thanks, Meenakshi. Thanks, Meenakshi, for taking us through the journey of FIDR USA in such a beautiful way. Now, this organization is a think tank which is based in USA. It's part of FIDR India, which works the last mile to make the lives in our communities better. Everything around us is dynamic, and we need to change our thoughts, ideas, beliefs, theories, and our narratives based on a dynamic environment. A common good in thought and action will be key in building communities, like better communities. In the past, FIDR has planned events related to artificial intelligence in healthcare, mental health, and social media. We had an elaborate discussion with the celebrated filmmaker, Mr. Nilamadha Panda, on his movies and vision in life. Today, we are privileged to have Mr. Bibhu Mohapatra, who is a global fashion creator with us. Um, as Meenakshi said, he has worked with many high-profile clients. We would love to know about Mr. Mohapatra's vision and would like to be involved as an organization to help the vision take action on the ground. We would like to help in any way possible. Welcome to this global forum, Mr. Mohapatra. This rendezvous would be informal yet incisive, relaxed yet prodding. We want to know a lot about you and your life's journey. And thanks for making it to this discussion. I welcome Charu sir to moderate the rendezvous with Mr. Bibhu Mohapatra.
Thanks. Thanks, Mamta. Thanks, Meenakshi. Hi, Bibhu. Thanks for taking time out for this rendezvous. We all know that we're going through very difficult times. We just spoke about that. Our families are in difficulty, and I appreciate your giving time for this rendezvous. Will not take much time. And what I was thinking at the spot at the moment was that we could probably have a series of such discussions with you because it's been quite distracting for you. So we wish all the best for you, your family members, relatives who are vulnerable, and I'm sure they'll come out of this, and this shall pass. That's and this too will pass. So that's the motto. And with that, I once again thank you for being here with us, because we don't see you as a creative person only. We see you as a conscientious creative person, and that makes all the difference. Believe me, that makes all the difference. Um, And how has COVID, it's been almost what, more than 14, 15 months, almost a year and a half. So how have you been in these COVID times? Indoor brooding or indoor thinking? Is it a creative time or is it a very lonely, depressing time? I mean, how do you look at it? You've been creating a lot of stuff in the recent past.
Well, thank you, Charudatta, and thank you, Mamta, and thank you, Meenakshi, and really amazing to know the scope of work and the body of work of FIDR and what you all have created, and thank you for organizing this. And when we all went into lockdown over a year ago. Everything was very sort of personal, right? Everything, we were still in our own bubble, in our worlds. And, then very soon we all realized that we're all in it together. And we're all being affected by it. And so for me, I thought like, okay, we're just closing our studio for a few weeks and we'll be back. But I'm very fortunate that I have a little place upstate that me and my husband, we went and we just stayed there. And it's farmlands and not many people, so I could be outside, but always sort of knew that we'll be back in action in a few weeks. But that was not the case, so the few weeks became a good few months, and I sort of, my thinking changed, that I was not thinking like a designer or a creative person that loves to create beautiful clothes, and I still do. But I very soon realized that I had all the time to sort of think about the path that I have been in, and things that I have done, and how I have sort of stayed connected with some people, and I have lost touch with many, and all those individuals and beautiful minds that sort of came along with me during this journey that I have somehow lost contact with. So I basically went through a process in my head to examine everything that I have done thus far. And as I was going through with it,
Computer audio was about.
It seemed like there was a void, there was a um, tunnel, and there was no light then. What I did is I turned that sort of dark and sort of depressing energy to towards making an effort in staying in touch with people that I haven't been in touch with. So I basically sat with all my contact books, my old phones and my emails, and started reaching out to people and to check in with them. So that was the first step. And I had all the time, and I was focusing on the garden, or I got some little chicks and started raising chickens, and there were plenty to do. But most of my time was spent staying connected with people and contributing and being aware of what was happening around us. And it so happened that lives were being lost and being highlighted by the injustice that was happening around us here. I'm talking about Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd, and which gave rise to this massive global movement of Black Lives Matter. And so, but I also, even then, I was feeling helpless because I'm in this little village and I can't go and do anything. So I use social media to sort of get information, get educated, and so that I could talk about it in a more informed way and in a sensitive manner. So all of a sudden, things that were super important before last March became minuscule, and my priorities shifted. And I was starting to think clearly and thinking about how should my process change when we open up again, when we get back to somewhat normalcy. Am I going to operate the same way? Am I going to be thinking the same way? Or am I going to question everything and then do things differently? Because I realized that we have to change. It's basically you change or die. Otherwise, because standing still and just letting things happen the way they happen is not an option. So that's what I landed in August last year. And that's the time when New York City, as you know, was hit the hardest. And we started opening back up. And the big thing was to meet my team back in my studio again. And so that's something I was looking forward to. So I think the last, just short answer of that, now that I've given the longest answer, is that it was a creative time for me, but it was not literally making more clothes. It was about examining my own process and things that I have done in the past, and how am I going to do things differently and take out the fear and the anxiety of making a mistake. You know, especially what we went through and going through still. We have to try our best and do things, have our actions, not only to just benefit my own surrounding, but we have to think communally and how we can make a little difference in our immediate community. It doesn't matter what we do, what our profession is, but if we can bring along our community, then we can actually make change. That is correct.
That's very motivational, to say the least, Bibhu. That's very motivational, because I was just thinking about your team, because you've been a team player, you work with artisans from different parts of the world, from different areas, reasons, thinking, from different sexes. So how has this, brought back your team to a cohesive togetherness, which was probably missing during the COVID times, or probably was jolted during the COVID times, and now they're back into the mainstream? And how would that take forward your line of work, because with all our coping mechanisms, life has to move on. We realize that, and we also know what you just rightly mentioned, that we have to dig out our own individual ways of facing the future, taking everybody along. um, that's quite epiphanic, I would say. So how do you sometimes think that New York is quite noisy for the kind of a person that you are, or the kind of work you do?
uh, Literally and figuratively, yes. But I think that's why people get drawn to New York, because of its grainy noise, which is in part because of it being a melting pot, because of people from all over, from all walks of life, converge here and to make themselves, and whatever their dreams are, they give it a go if they can. And persistence is a big characteristics of New York and New Yorkers. So yes, it's very noisy, and that's what, if you take it in the right way, that noise is your sort of your scale to go above. Once you go above that noise, you can be heard, and you can make a difference. And how can you go above that noise? You better have something unique, something authentic to express, because there's some, brilliant minds. I'm just talking about in creative world. They all converge here, and everyone has great ideas, and it's how they articulate themselves, and how they claim authenticity behind it, is the key. And this is also the place where you can find talent and can find people who inspire you. Take my immediate team, which is very tiny, but without them, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. And but talking about team, I also have all these artisans who work out of factories in India, and also the mill workers in, let's say, in Europe, or in and in, let's say, Japan. I haven't met most of them, but they support my work. They give me vocabulary to do what I do, to express myself. So we started seeing a little by little, the supply chain sort of being affected starting January 2020. And we didn't really realize the magnitude of it, what it would become, when the artisans' work couldn't be here in time to complete our projects. Then we heard that all these factories that employed all these artisans, they had to go home, because it was not safe for them, and factories were closing down, and many of them are still closed, and many of them have gone out of business because they lost a lot of their big accounts, because the big accounts, doesn't matter wherever they are, their businesses suffer too. So it's sort of that effect sort of continued on. So I think,
But Bibhu,
even though we are back up and running here, I don't think my surroundings and my entire circle of survival is back full on yet. And I was really looking forward to going back home in June. Now it seems impossible given what's happening in India. And I was going to sort of maybe visit one or two of the factories, or also go to some of the clusters in Odisha, where some of those ICAT revival programs that I did, just to see and sort of inspire myself, really, and chart a course for the next 10 years. But I think that trip has to wait for a little bit now. So New York it is, and I'm very happy to be back in New York City after it opened up. and it's good to see people. And now that winter was hard, when it was really, really cold, people were all indoors and it was very difficult. But now weather has changed and everyone feels a little bit optimistic, and vaccination is happening pretty rapidly. Um, so I'm lucky to be in this place, and I'm really counting my blessings.
In the environment, yes. And an existential question actually, or a thought,
Yeah,
that New York also has the market. New
yeah.
York is the place where there is market. So what do you think? Idea comes first or market comes first for a person like you, for a creative person like you? Why I'm asking this is because then we could say that there is a difference between fashion and style. What's mainstream, what I have to buy because three others like me are buying or are wearing, and that's trendy. So, or do I ask Bibhu because Bibhu has always been unique? So, how much of that individualism is coming out of this post internet uh, selection of outfits or selection of um, covering my personality or boosting my personality? So how much of that insecurity is covered with individualism, or do you think we are thinking too much?
No, no, no. I think there are two different things. How I think uh, my process is, it has to be the if I think of creating something, if I have seen it, I always question it. If I put together a design and I'm sort of okay or happy with it, but I don't give it a chance just by default. I always step back and question myself: have I seen it somewhere, or is that familiarity that's sort of in on the periphery, that sort of my creative vision for this particular piece? Is that why I think it's valid? Um, if it's something I have seen, or something I have seen on the streets that even has like a fraction of a percentage chance of being derivative, I lose interest. For me, um, when something becomes trendy, that's the end of the creative cycle of it, which is great. I mean, which is totally fine, and and that's how we all consume. We see it, read it in the magazines, or we see it on TV, or we see it on advertisements. Then we know that, okay, that's happening now and this is current, and it is. But the cycle of that particular design started a year ago or a year and a half ago. So I try not to look at the trends, although trend reports are crucial for a lot of design houses, lot of bigger volume design houses, and they produce faster, so they see the trends and they know that, okay, yellow is going to be the thing, and so they want to sort of produce something, and in yellow send it to the market so that they can capture that that craze about that hunger for that specific trend. Nothing wrong in that. I don't. For me, I would like to be on the beginning end of it, so that because that's what inspires me. If I have seen something, and if someone has said something about something beautifully, there is no need for me to enhance that. I feel like that way. I had a very detour, and I just didn't woke up one day and like, okay, I'm going to study fashion. No, I had to plan on it with a lot of support from my loving family and friends who allowed me to be here. So why would I give up this opportunity to when I can say something 100% of my own vocabulary and new? Why would I go for something that would be considered as a derivation of something that has been done before? That's my goal. And And that has become the identity of the little brand that we have created. And that also allows me to have the breadth of the freedom to collaborate with artisans all over the world as much as I can. So there are no hard and fast rules I play with. If I see that, okay, this is a craft that should be talked about, then I go and collaborate with them and try to highlight their story. And that's how my story gets authenticated, because it's never about just me. It's about my team, anyone who contributes to it. And every chance I get, I talk about that.
That's exactly the point. So you've been quite an advocate for ethnicity. I mean, so the local designs, local artisans, getting the last mile involved in what you do, in the creative stuff that you do. How do you? What's your take on aesthetics and ethnicity? What's your thought on that? How can we make ethnic stuff more and more relevant, more and more popular, if I may use that?
I think what you're asking is historical attributes of craft, and
what I'm asking Bibhu, why I'm asking this is because many of us see you as the ferryman between the past and the present, or past and the future. So you have a crucial role in that.
Well, I just follow what interests me and what I think is important. And I love to travel as much as I can. And I'm fortunate enough to be exposed to many different crafts and the artisanic world of different cultures, and be it food, be it textiles, be it embroideries, be it architecture. And I'm not, by no means, I'm knowledgeable person on everything, but I know what drives me, what my interests are, and I try to focus on that particular culture, that particular craft, every time I have an opportunity to say something with the collection. So talking about heritage and is strength. This is what I have said, and this is what I feel, and that's my heritage, my background gives me my edge, and that's something I can confidently talk about and be inspired by and express myself with, without running the risk of my work being considered as cultural appropriation or anything. I'm extremely careful and extremely sensitive about any particular culture that I give through my work. I make sure I educate myself first. And sure, I grew up in Odisha, and I know a little bit about by default, because we were born and raised there, and that was all around us. But still, I have a lot to learn. And but there are certain new things that I discover, and I see this ikat from Uzbekistan, which is very different from our Odisha ikat, but that has its own legacy and own lineage. So, and I have a curious mind and interest about that, and I try to educate myself. And I try to bring that to my audience, because it's important that people are aware of the craft. But now it's even more important for all of us to know the source of our consumption. Like we would want to know where this particular vegetable was grown. Was it organically grown? Was pesticides were used for this? We are sort of gotten more sensitive to that. Same thing, we should also question about, where is this piece of clothing made? Who made it? And was this made by a factory which practices fair labor laws? And are the workers are they being paid fair wages, and all those things that we for so long and up until now we thought like, oh, that's not for us to worry about. We're doing our job by paying something to acquire this, and our job is done. To me, that's not how we should be thinking right now. Especially from now on, we should be questioning every single thing that we put on our backs. We need to know who made it, where it comes from, and before we invest a penny into something, we want to make sure that it has a longevity. So we can't just follow trends and use it and throw it, which nothing wrong in that, but personally I don't do that. If I invest in a piece of clothing, or it's like buying a book, like you read it but you always want to keep it because it's, if you love it, and it always sort of, you can go back to it for references. So I think it is never been this important for us to know the source of the clothes that we're using, whether it's khadi from specific area in India, whether it's the silk that comes out of China, or we just need to know where it comes from and what practices were used and where is it made. So that transparency is key, and also with that transparency, we can tell a true and honest and authentic story about our crafts. So that's how we go above that noise level that we're talking about. In order to do that, I need to lean on my team, the artisans that I work with, the person that sewed that piece of clothing, the person who made the textiles, the person who did the embroidery. And we always have to keep them in our orbit and in our conversations, so that they become a part of the identity of that particular product. It's, sure, people love to spend money on brands, and brands have value, and because of their quality and their whether they're couture, they're luxury, and they're rare. But what makes them really rare and unique is the people that put their best efforts. And I think we need to make sure that, at least for my brand, I want to make sure that I tell the story of anyone who gave a hand to make that happen. And I make it a point, I tell that story.
Yeah, your stories have been very powerful and very powerfully expressed also. That brings us to something which is connected. You've been a strong votary of responsible consumerism. Now, a person who's in the middle of the market, high street market, talking about consumerism or challenging consumerism, irresponsible consumerism, and advocating minimalism, how does it work for you?
I think it's always a balance, and I think it's a choice make, right? I think if we can be good, responsible consumers without shunning things, and I think that's why making wise choices before we purchase something, we need to be knowledgeable about it, and it's not just that our act is finished after we pay for something and we use it and it's done. No, I think, and it's not just clothes. I think having that longevity of a product that we select, I think the fun is in having that product in your possession, and finding ways to use it, reuse it, and sort of weave it into your lifestyle, than just use it and throw it. It's we unfortunately in the last few decades we are sort of taught like that, and we need to get a deals with we all love a deal in whatever we procure, and sometimes while we chase that, we sort of lose respect for what we are procuring to consume, and we use it and we don't see it after that one use. I think we don't all need to become activists about and become like, anti-consumer movements. But I think we all can be responsible. We all can really look at what we have, and if we don't have a use for it, let's not send it to a landfill. Let's find creative ways to upcycle it, or recycle it and reuse it. And that's why all these businesses are like real or consignment models that used to be little shops. Now consignment model is massive. They're like multi-million businesses. So people are making it to a little bit more responsibility. So I think it's the balance of being aware of what we are procuring, and really understanding the value of it, and understanding the roots of it, and that's how we sort of consume responsibly, I feel.
Why did you name your line Bibhu Mohapatra? Are you like the French who say that, to know me, you have to come to me, I will not go to you? Was it that more
I
a
remember
French? Or was it?
No.
Why I'm asking this is because your jewelry line is Artemis.
Right.
So why this? Your clothes line is, your apparel line is Bibhu.
Yeah.
Why this?
No,
different?
because you have to. That's my name. My core brand is my name. And I remember I was at a dinner party at a friend's house. This is 15 years ago, and that's when I was sort of thinking about starting my own. And one of the guests asked me, "So, what are you going to call your brand? Like, you're not going to call your name, right?" And I'm like, "Of course, I'm going to. It's my name, my brand. So, of course, I will." He's like, "Oh, no, that'd be a mistake because your name is a mouthful because it's very complicated. No one's going to." And I just laughed, and I sort of said, like, how do you? I mean, sure. Like I probably gave him a French brand's name, which is, people learn to pronounce the most difficult names, whether it's an artist they love, whether it's a brand they love, or whether it's a vegetable that is not native to their country. But they know how to. They figure out how to say it. And it doesn't matter if they don't say it perfectly how it's supposed to be, but it's about making it a part of their vision and their living, right? So I said, like, I could change, I could call it something else, but it's my name, and my name is my heritage, and it's my family's name. So then the person started to negotiate with me, like, okay, then just use your first name. And so I just laughed, and that sort of gave me the thinking that it was for sure that, okay, I'm going to use my full name, and if people believe in the product, they will learn how to say it name. And some people call me Bibhu, some people hold Bibhu Mohapatra, the entire name. Trust me, people will learn if there is authenticity, if the core is solid of the product, they will learn about it. And for Artemis, it's a sub brand. So what the entire thing says is Artemis by Bibhu Mohapatra for our mark, which is De Beers company. So within that, we wanted to call this particular collection Artemis. So someday we will do another different type of fine jewelry that we can call another name by Bibhu Mohapatra. So my name is always attached to it. We just gave it a category name.
And of course, we are so proud of that because I know of many people, honestly, I know of many people who probably think that you bring in the balance between wearable and expressive stuff. Because many people think that which is not wearable is so exotic and so top line because it's not wearable, and something which is expressive is so much soul related, so much that comes from within. So what's your idea about these? Do you think these are oxymorons, these are opposites, wearable and expressive?
Well, they kind of are and they're not, because you can be expressive, but it can also be completely making a statement, because it's all depends on who you are. You know, if we were talking about this crazy outlandish things walking on the runway, and we put them in the box of not wearable, yeah, probably they're not racist, they're not verbal, but they have a purpose. If brand has a presentation of 10 minutes, and in those 10 minutes, it has to create these mini moments that will capture the attention of the audience and for people to write about. And they can take away the essence of that particular collection by this completely absurd thing that walks on the runway. But that's it. That's a way of expressing themselves, and it could be individual. You could find individuals who could probably wear that and be completely fine with it. But I think we all need to experiment. We all do in many ways, and finding out who we are and define who we are, and what our style is, and then we figure it out. I think that if we think about it one way, it's the complete opposite. But at the same time, it depends on what magnifies our core. I always say, I want my clothes to make someone more of who they are, and not turn them into someone else. You know, so that's one of the mottos of my collection.
So nothing much has changed, Bibhu, since Think Box and 73rd and Broadway. Has Bibhu changed over the years?
Who's the same person? Bibhu's thinking has changed. Bibhu is definitely wiser, not the wisest. I still have a lot to learn. But what's constant is the love and support of my friends and my family, people who have even gave me a nod to acknowledge work and encourage me. Those people are the same, and they're my core of my strength. But otherwise, it's a ever shifting landscape, you know, and that keeps me, and I think most on our toes to constantly reinvent ourselves, constantly making sure that we are saying things that are interesting to us as creative individuals, but also it's interesting to the audience that we are telling. It's all about those authentic stories that we sometimes just pass along to our audience. We don't have to gild it. We don't have to decorate it. And you know, if I am able to have the access of this particular artisan from this particular weaving cluster, and have the access to their craft and bring that craft here and be able to create a collection and give exposure to that work, that's what interests me, and that's how I'm thinking more after. You know, I'm not just going to go randomly buy materials or just put together things and make beautiful things. It has to have that human quality element to it. Otherwise, it's not interesting to me, or I don't think it will be interesting to any of my audience.
Yeah, because
so I'm the same person.
Yeah, but over the years, you've been thinking more about the earth. You've been thinking about the circular economy. You have been thinking about minimalism. You've been thinking. So a lot of you've been responding to your immediate environment quite more. Of course, that will happen with every day passing by. and that happens with each one of us. But the way you've been responding and the way you've been vocal about this is something which is tremendous, and we commend that. That doesn't come
Thank
out
you.
so naturally and so organically from people who are public faces, who have a
Well,
public life.
I mean, well, to be very honest, I haven't done any work. I mean, I'm sensitive to certain things and I talk about it, but a lot of work has to be done before I can even get to the podium and talk about it. Because what is a peeve for me is a lot of the brands and a lot of the creative people with all good intention, they love to talk about it and love to talk the talk. And I'm of the school that no, let me make a little bit of progress and then I can be worthy of talking about it. We all think, I assume we all think responsibly and would like to practice certain certain habits, change some of our habits on a day-to-day basis to make a difference. As simple as that, like when we're brushing our teeth, we make sure that we turn off the water so that we don't waste it.
Mhm.
But to make a press release about it, it doesn't make sense. And unfortunately, a lot of the people just join the PR bandwagon and talk about it.
Yes.
So for me, yes, I'm sensitive to a lot of these issues, but I also know the reality. My resources and my reality won't allow me to all of a sudden make changes and become an activist and be involved in everything. So I'm trying to articulate myself by making myself knowledgeable about one specific cause that I want to focus on, and one specific area that I think I should be investing my time and resources, and with the hope that I can make a difference in one individual or a group of individual or a village that that has been supporting me and my heritage by keeping a specific craft alive through generations and generations, even after being exploited by generations and generations by people who always took advantage of them. So instead of talking about it, I want to make some progress and make
That's really good.
some actual changes. Then I can talk about it.
That's really good, because the socioeconomic changes that we think should come from the weavers that we have in different states of India, not only Pasapali or Orissa or Ikat or Sambalpuri or so it
Right?
could be Goa, it could be Kumisaris, it could be anywhere. I mean,
Absolutely,
anywhere in
absolutely.
India. And that's where we want to connect these groups and see how best we could do to improvise on the designs to make them more contemporary, more global. So it's all about globalization, it's all about reaching out to different people. So
Yeah.
designs are human,
Yes.
users are humans, buyers are humans. So why should we get restricted with country borders or geographic borders? Let's all come together.
No,
That's the
we
whole idea.
should we shouldn't. I just need to attend the door for 1 second. I have someone
Sure,
here. Just
sure.
sorry about that. So yes, there are a lot of areas that we can focus on. That's why it has to be a shared responsibility. But by taking a tiny little step, my hope is that we become an example of example to someone to take on that little responsibility and to work with someone and amplify their work and their work. So be it in Goa, be it in Odisha, be it in Andhra Pradesh, be it in,
Anyway,
so
Karnataka. Absolutely.
that's the, we can't do everything. We can't be everything. We just have to be mindful and be practical about what's the most effective way we can
Make an impact.
start making changes. Yeah.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. We have a lot of questions, a lot of suggestions, ideas on the chat box, but I'll take a few of them in the paucity of time. Um, a few questions. So let's start with Trupti. Trupti is a young friend who's now doing her fashion design course. She's asking, how does Bibhu sir choose his theme for a collection? What is the turning point in Bibhu sir's life that pushed him to be a successful fashion designer? Things he wants in his in his style for his runway show. So please don't repeat answers you've already answered, but your take, Bibu.
Oh, I'll just start with the first one. It's the inspiration and the concept behind a collection. That when I select that, that's the most exciting process. And I have a little library, visual library that I have been building since last 20 years, which includes tear sheets and tear sheets and pages and books about I read from people. It's all sort of it's all sort of always there, and so I just want to make sure that I can sort of take those and talk about if I'm planning on a collection. Those are my resources. But through the collections, I always try to see, I'm inspired by strong women always. They're not fashion people. They could be living, they could be dead, but it's about their stories. They could be a writer, they could be a painter, but it's the essence of their spirit is what I'm drawn by. And then making that connection with that spirit to the Bibhu woman is always the most exciting part. And I build an altar of my inspiration images every season, and that grows. So
your mother has been a major influence on you.
Oh, my mother gave me everything that I know. She's I guess, I mean, both my parents gave a lot to me and taught me how to be and think about things. But my mother was she was very good in her craft, and she was very good with embroidery. She was making textiles with embroidery, and she taught me how to sew. So I owe pretty much everything to her, and she was brilliant.
Asha from Goa, she has a question. In the current scenario of uncertainty and minimalistic being the word, what's the future of fashion? I think you have partially covered this, but you would like to say something on this.
I think fashion needs to be more responsible. Fashion needs to be more mindful of its community, and it needs to relearn how to give credit to all its participants.
And do you experience cultural appropriation? If so, how do you deal with it?
Well, I personally, I'm very sensitive to that. And before we talk about whether it's a debate, whether it's building a collection of specific cultural reference, we need to be very, very mindful, and we'll need to be very knowledgeable about those references before we speak about whether we are at whether we're talking about our own culture or whether we're talking about a culture that we are in love with. We need to be very mindful of that. Otherwise, it would seem like it's cultural appropriation. And I'm extremely sensitive about that. And if I get called out for that, I would be first to apologize, and that would mean that I needed to do more of my homework.
That's very appropriately and aptly put. Do your designs that incorporate authentic Odia, Pasapalli or other Odia handlooms designs tend to do well in the market, and does it have a potential to become a trend so that our Odia culture is one step closer to being mainstream? This is a very Odisha specific question.
Yes, of course. It's very popular, and it's been there for hundreds of years, but and it's very popular in our region and in India. But it's time for it to shine globally, and it has had global exposure, but now it's time to really talk about the craft and people who have been keeping it alive, and that's the only way we can get its due global attention. And for me, I have done saris as a part of a specific program in Odisha 10 years ago, and I've been told that it's been very successful for them. But I look forward to the day when I can have access to work with these artisans to create materials for my own collection. So it becomes a real collaboration. Then I can show my collection, because I saw my collection in New York and in Paris. So if I have the access to those materials, and then I can tell their story with my collection, and I look forward to that day.
Thanks, Bibhu. Bibhu, FIDR USA is given to very stringent timelines of their talks that they have. So they start in time and they end in time. But with a person like you, we would love to talk and talk and talk. But this is not, I believe this is not the right time to do that, because you also disturbed a little because of the COVID cases that have come to you today. And I think we should come to an end of this lovely rendezvous with you. But before that, tell us what next.
I think a lot of work I have to do, not just within this thinking box now, but a lot of work has to be done. Things that I haven't been able to do in the last 12 years of this brand.
But tell me something. Think box looked like this, where you're sitting now? This color and this kind of a place, or was it different?
No, it was really like half of this section. It was a 12 by 12 room with white walls and one side windows, which was a part of a church on 73rd and Broadway, and it was just enough. And if there are 2-3 people in the room would seem filled. It was
actually those are the days, and those are the things which were always enough for us. We also started small. FIDR started small, and we always are nostalgic about that.
Yeah,
all these big things, plentiful, are so vacuous.
Yeah, no, I mean, sometimes you just physically need space to grow, but in essence, that thinking box gave me a lot, and I am forever indebted to that. I remember standing there and painting it all white, and just sitting there for weeks thinking about what should be the next thing that I should do. It really gave me clarity, and it was a luxury that I had, that I could afford to do that for a few months before I could sort of embark on my journey. But thank you very much for making this happen.
No, you didn't answer my question. So what's next? The new first lady?
Oh, yeah.
The new first lady or the incoming first lady? So what's next?
Well, those things are small. Those things are small sort of check marks that I would like to have the first ladies, and but I think it's more about collaborations with artisans and people in my community, and how I can be of any help. Like I was telling you earlier, the space that I have, I don't take it for granted. So I plan to use this as a space to give young designers to maybe have pop-up shops, or to have access to their audience, and so that they can see their work, because not many people have access to places like this. So I call it the space, the concept space. So all these shelves that you see are empty here. Those would be objects when I travel, and or other artisans who have created things, and this would be the platform for them to sell, so that they can actually give exposure to their own work. So that's what I'm thinking for this space. It's not just about me or my clothes, but it should be about the community.
Incubation. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. So that's I don't have clarity for what's next, if I say that, I'll be lying, but I just know that what direction I want to go. Hopefully the world will come into a place where everything is safe. We are all safe again to travel and interact with each other. The biggest cost that we are paying right now is we're missing the human touch. We're missing the space with each other. And that's affecting. And some of these are going to be long-term. So I hope that as human beings, we will appreciate each other's presence more once we go back to normalcy. That's my hope.
Great, Bibhu. And I suggest below your Bibhu Mohapatra a tagline, the logo, below that you should add conscience keeper. So yes, Bibhu Mohapatra, conscience keeper. So this label keeps your conscience. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you as first as a human being, second as a creative person, third as a craftsman, fourth but not the least as a person who believes in his roots. Hats off to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, Charadatta.
Thank you, Bibhu sir.
Thank you, Mamta. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, all the participants. It's been a lovely evening having you together. Look forward to our next session. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.